世界の平和を守る人妻 JK 魔法少女リリちゃんです。
I was arrested at around noon on August 23rd last year in a capsule hotel in Kabukicho, my home. I was supposed to get up at 5 a.m. that day, but then I must have woke up after 6 a.m. When I woke up and checked the screen on my smartphone, I thought my world just ended. The reason why I had to get up at 5 a.m. on the day was because I was scheduled to work at a soap plant from 9 a.m. I was supposed to walk and take the train from Kabukicho, my home, to my workplace in Yoshiwara. To be honest, I could make it to work in time even if I woke up at 7 a.m., but I wanted to get up at 5 a.m. At work, I was about to sleep with a random old man. I'm 25 years old now. I've been working at a soap plant for 7 years now, and I've gradually came to refuse this side of myself. I thought that the work was good when I was 18 because I thought that all the elements of this world was gathered in the world of soap plants. I thought that everything in this world was contained there because I'm a trash, stupid woman who does not know how this world works. When I was 20, the work was still good. I was happy that I could work for the person who I loved. All that I had to do was just work hard and endure everything. The person whom I loved looked at the money that I have put together with shining eyes. I was happy. I still could ignore the strange feeling that I had inside of me. When I was 22, it was no longer possible. When I was 23, I took a lot of meds to forget everything. When I was 24, I started to brainwash myself into thinking I love this job. When I was 25, I didn't know anymore. On the days I worked, I had to wake up at 5 a.m., slowly wash my hair, slowly iron my hair, slowly choose my clothes, and slowly create myself. I had to slowly walk, one step at a time, slowly feel the day's weather, slowly breathe the air, slowly savor the feeling of being alive. I thought that it was nice to see everyone pushing me along, so I tried walking at the same speed as them and pretended to be a normal person commuting to work. I saw a big picture hanging on the wall and thought, what is this? I went into the public restroom near the station entrance and stared at my full body reflection in the mirror. I could not do it. I had to do this work. But I did not want to go work at the soap plant. I did not want to go. I did not want to live. So on August 23rd, I woke up after 6 a.m. and gave up on the day. I've been taking the pill to prevent getting pregnant, but I gave up on doing that for the day as well. I comforted myself by saying I'll somehow be able to survive. Probably. Then I gave up. And then, exhausted from crying, I fell asleep. And when I was sleeping happily, I was then woken up and arrested. Thank you for rescuing me. I was surrounded by about 8 police officers and was a bit scared, but everyone was kind and treated me nicely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Watanabe Mai was arrested by the Aichi Prefectural Police on August 23, 2023 on charges of aiding and abetting in fraud by selling a manual which detailed the steps to scam money out of lonely men. And she was subsequently arrested 2 more times after her first arrest in August, with the last one being on October 22, 2023 on charges of defrauding large sums of money from a number of men aged over 50 years old. She was put in jail after the 3rd arrest and was investigated under unarrested state until her trial was held on April 22, 2024, where she was sentenced to 9 years in prison and 80 million Japanese yen in fines. And as Mai has no savings whatsoever under her name to pay the 80 million yen fine, she wrote in one of her prison diary entries that she'll have to do approximately 2 years of hard labor after she completes her 9-year sentence. So basically more than decade plus years in an incarcerated state. Now, it is no exaggeration to state that Mai has now achieved almost a semi-celebrity status in Japan. Whenever her prison diary is updated, she at least receives 1 million in views for each of her diary entries, with the more memorable ones receiving more than 10 million in views on Twitter. This diary entry, for instance, where she reflected back on the memories of how she was investigated by both the Japanese police and the prosecutors after the arrest, has 17 million views. So needless to say, with the entire nation of Japan interested in her case, more than 300 people came to watch her trial that was held on April 22, 2024, when she received her sentence. In her May 20th, 2024 prison diary entry, she said that she receives all kinds of letters and gifts in prison from her fans. Girls who say that they liked her before she got arrested. Girls who say that they got interested in her story after the arrest, etc, etc. And Mai says that although she stays strict in not replying back to most letters written by men, she's trying to reply back to all her female fans. But let us return back to what led to her very first arrest. The manual. Mai is said to have sold these manuals to over 1,000 people, and although there is quite a discrepancy between different online sources on the exact price that Mai charged for her manuals, the price in which Mai sold each of the Sugar Daddy Magic manuals for, according to the contents of the very judgment paper provided by the Nagoya District Court, was 28,000 yen, or around $178. So needless to say, we can already tell by the price of her manuals that this was no ordinary guide or manual. Kato Hirotaro, head partner lawyer at Kato and Asakawa Law Office, who specializes in fraud, said, Mai's manual constitutes content that aids and abets fraud. It contains specific instructions on how to get the so-called oji to get gradually serious about handing over money, so it can truly be called a fraud instruction manual, and pointed out that the manual itself is plain illegal. Now, for our subscribers who have watched our videos for a while, you'll know that we do not enjoy repeating content that has been covered by other channels and is already existing on YouTube. And the contents of Mai's Sugar Daddy Magic Guidebook, as fascinating as it is exactly that. For any of you guys who may not know already, there's a great channel here on YouTube by the name of Japanalysis, and he did an excellent job at discussing the contents of Mai's manual in a detailed and entertaining way. So for those who are interested, rather than us going over the similar points in which he has in his video, please check out his video and show his channel some love. So this video will not be focusing solely on the manual itself, but more on the comprehensive life story of Watanabe Mai that led her to be the infamous scammer and now the prisoner that she has become. Her childhood, every single fraud that she has committed in detail, her current life in prison, and most importantly, the myriad lessons that her life teaches us on regarding the importance of tackling societal issues such as domestic violence, school bullying, host club addiction, and so much more. So let us dive in. If you have memories of your dad chasing you when you were a child, it is most likely for a fun and playful cause. But for young Watanabe Mai, living in Hiratsuka, a city in Japan's Kanagawa prefecture, she was absolutely horrified whenever her dad came after her. The reporters from Japan's Tokai TV, who visited her 12 times while she was locked in jail prior to her sentencing, managed to persuade Mai to share her childhood so that more people in Japan could know about her past and upbringings. And Mai, never shunning attention, did oblige to their request and wrote 87 pages worth of notes regarding her past while in jail and handed it over to the reporters at Tokai TV. And inside her notes were some shocking content. She said that her father would often come after her and threaten her with a knife. Some of the things in which her father said to her were, "You hid the knife, didn't you? I'm going to buy a knife now and kill you." And although her father thankfully did not take things to the point of making Mai unalive, he did more than frequently commit domestic violence in different ways, such as lighting fire on her skin using a lighter or just bit her up. And one day, Mai was so scared to the point that she thought that she was really going to be made unalive on the day by her father. So she took the courage to dial 110 and asked for help. However, when the police officers arrived at the scene, they just waved off their hand and said that this was just a parent-child dispute. Mai wrote that the police officers wanted to make her feel better by buying her ice cream. She stated that this lack of help broke her heart and was the moment in her life when she knew that she could not expect anything from anyone in this world. And her childhood suffering did not just stop inside the house. Mai frequently mentions that she suffered from severe atopic dermatitis when she was young and was constantly bullied at school because of it. Her classmates talked behind her back and told each other to go and touch her. To quote Mai, "Time stopped when I realized that I was being treated like a germ." But once again, no one helped her. Mai says that she had a good relationship with her mother. She downright wrote that she loved her mother and that her mother was the only person whom she could talk to. However, Mai says that she was disappointed in the fact that whenever it was time for her mother to step up when she was a child, she did not. In an interview that Mai conducted prior to her incarceration, she said that her mother was the type of person who liked to read the air and paid much attention to how other people perceived her. So Mai told her mother, the only person on earth whom she thought that she could rely on, that she was getting bullied at school. But then Mai's mother, instead of heading to school and talk to Mai's teachers about the bullying and tackle the issue, told Mai, "It's probably just all in your head," and did not take any action regarding the bullying. Many of the pages of the prison notes that Mai wrote regarding her family is said to be blurred in many places with tears. So Mai, afraid of the domestic violence of her father and knowing the futility of talking to her mother, left home when she was only in year 6 of elementary school and began staying at the houses of different old men whom she met online in return for, we believe you guys can already guess what Mai provided in return to the perverted old men for her to be able to stay in their houses. In her prison diary, she wrote, "I knew that the reason why people from online met me was, of course, to sleep with me. And I understood that this was the only good thing I had, so that was fine with me. People did not like me. They thought that I was disgusting, leading me to become a negative person. So by sleeping with them and make them happy made me feel like I was filling in all the negative aspects of myself. It made me feel happy. It made me feel wanted."
幼少期から私結構今あんま分かんないと思うんだけどアトピーめっちゃひどくてもうバーってもう全身血まみれみたいな感じで入院するレベルでひどくてもう家庭のそのストレスとかもあったからなんだけどそれであんまり生きてない。
Mai says that she rarely attended middle and high school. All of this means that throughout most of her important developmental years, from childhood to adolescence, she never had the normal social interactions in which the majority of us usually go through before reaching adulthood. Having a conversation with her parents over dinner, talking and socializing with friends at school. She never went through any of this. In fact, the only social interaction that she had prior to turning 18 was mostly with the old men whom she was staying in their houses in. But then, it seemed as if Mai wanted to change all of this by the time she turned 19. Out of the hundreds of her daily prison diary entries, an entry that we found quite memorable was the one that she wrote on June 10th, 2024. Mai wrote that when she was 19, she finally left her hometown and got a place of her own in Yokohama. She said that she did not care about the little details of her new home, such as the apartment building being old and so on, and left everything up to the real estate agent. However, the only one thing that she could not absolutely compromise on was that the walls and the floors of her room be pure white. Mai says that she had an obsession with the color pure white when she was 19, as she wanted to start everything from zero, from a clean, pure white state. Hence, she says that she also wanted a place where she was going to start this new life of hers to be physically in pure white color as well. And when she found such a white-colored room through her real estate agent, she says that she felt a large sense of happiness. And it does indeed seem as if Mai initially wanted to start everything again from a clean state and live a normal life. She did not immediately begin working at a soap plant, but began working at a mobile phone shop. However, she says that although she began working every day, she still did not understand why she was working. According to her very own words, she always thought, "I'm not a mobile phone shop worker, but rather myself." And what she also began to notice around that time was that her pure white room began to get dirty. We'll quote the very words of Mai herself from a prison diary from here onwards. There were cups in the kitchen that had not been washed for ages, and a plastic bottle on my bed with rotten tea inside. Moldy green tea from the supermarket next to a cute plate that I wanted to put a cake on. A bag of garbage that had not been thrown out for 3 months. When I saw my room like this, that's when I finally realized a pure white room is just a pure white room. This room will not guide me to a new life. When I came to this realization, I felt like I had my heart broken by this room. But then, this was all for the better. When I turned 20 years old, I discovered that there is indeed a pure white world. I found this out when I arrived in Kabukicho. And this is why I became homeless at 20 years old. I said goodbye to the pure white room that I have always dreamt of. Because my new pure white life is here. It's here in Kabukicho. I finally came to this realization when I was 20 years old. And with that, Mai left her pure white room in Yokohama, as well as her job as a mobile phone shop clerk, and began her life of working at various work establishments, host club addiction, selling sugar daddy magic manuals to young women across Japan that aided and abetted in scamming large sums of money out of lonely men, and of course, committing scams herself. She stayed homeless until her arrest in 2023 by staying in various capsule hotels located in Kabukicho. Now, there is quite a bit of public voice in Japan that claim that Mai's 9-year sentencing is on the harsher side. There are people who provided opinions such as, she did not kill anyone, or why is her sentence heavier than the one given to crime perpetrators? And we understand why such a sentiment may arise. As after all, Japan is a country where a father who has been assaulting his daughter from her 3rd grade of elementary school to until she turned 21 receives 7 years and 6 months in prison. The issue of lenient sentencing, or oftentimes downright acquittals, for S-crime perpetrators is so bad in Japan, leading to rallies and protests across the nation in the recent years on a number of bases. However, according to former prosecutor Mari Takahashi, who gave her opinion on Mai's sentencing, said, "It may be difficult to evaluate the severity of Mai's crime simply by comparing it with other crimes of different nature, such as murder or S-crimes. There are opinions that the sentences for S-crimes are too light, and I often feel the same way. But I think that this is an issue that should be considered separately rather than in comparison with the sentencing given for fraud." So yeah, we believe what former prosecutor Takahashi would like to point out is that when we consider the relatively heavy sentencing that was given to Mai for her crimes, we should not look at all the light sentencing that are given to the S-crime perpetrators in Japan and say, Mai's sentencing is too severe, but more in the lines of admitting that the sentencing that are given to the S-criminals in Japan are too lenient and hopefully find ways to fix this aspect of Japan in the future, rather than thinking that the length of sentencing given to Mai should be reduced to tantamount low levels to that of the S-crime perpetrators. We know that this still may come across as quite unfair, but we believe you guys get the gist of what former prosecutor Takahashi is trying to say. So then, what exactly made the Nagoya District Court Judge Omura Yoichi give Mai with the judgment of 9 years in prison and 80 million Japanese yen in fines? To find the answer to this question, we have to look no further than the actual judgment paper provided by the very Nagoya District Court. This is a long legal document, but you guys who have been watching our channel for a while are probably well aware at this point of the fact that we get in depth in our videos. So we'll in fact go over every single crime that Mai was charged with, while also not trying to make the video into more than 2 hours long. The list is not in chronological order, by the way, so please keep that in mind and pay attention to the dates that we provide. In 2023, Mai met a 50-year-old man, H, through the internet. Mai knew that man H showed affection for her, so thought of ways to scam money out of him. And between April 26th to 27th, 2023, Mai told H through the messenger app line that she wanted to completely cut ties with her parents. However, Mai told H that in order for her to do this, she had to give her parents 8 million yen, or around 50,800 USD, as they requested her to pay them back with this sum for raising Mai since she was a baby. Of course, all of this was a lie. However, Man H believed all of this, so Man H, from a bank branch at the city of Tsukuba, transferred 2 million yen to Mai's bank account. And a few days later, on May 1st, 2023, Man H came all the way to Shibuya and handed Mai with the rest of the 6 million yen himself in cash. So as we can all see, this 50-year-old man, H, had quite a strong feeling for Mai for him to so easily hand her over 8 million yen in just a few days' time. And Mai, knowing that she could scam more money from H, came up with another idea. In April 2023, Mai told H that she wanted to live together with him in his house. However, Mai said that there was one thing that had to be done before she moved in with him. Mai told H that she owed 27.14 million Japanese yen, or around 172,000 USD, to a man named Ikeda, and that if H was able to hand her the 27.14 million yen so that she could repay Ikeda, she could finally live together with H. All of this was obviously a lie created by Mai. There was no guy named Ikeda, and she did not owe 27.14 million yen to anyone. However, Man H, most likely excited to unfathomable levels at the idea of being able to live together with Mai, once again transferred the money to Mai's bank account in 2 separate installments. Mai took the 27.14 million yen and spent it all on her favorite host. Between April 15th to 16th, 2023, Mai told H through the messenger app line that she could not pay her mobile phone bills, and that if she could not pay the bills, she would not be able to use her smartphone. For H, this means that he can no longer receive line messages from Mai, so H transferred 110,000 yen, or around 700 USD, the sum in which Mai asked for, to her bank account. Nagoya District prosecutors say that she was not behind on her mobile phone payments at the time. If we remember correctly, from scam number 2, H was probably ecstatic at the idea of Mai coming to live together with him at his house after H handed Mai with the 27.14 million yen. However, Mai still did not come and live together with Man H after he gave her the money. The reason? Between June 21st to July 18th, 2023, Mai confessed to H that in fact, she owed more money to Ikeda in the sum of between 5 to 10 million yen or around 32,000 to 64,000 USD. She promised H that this was really the last bit of money that she owed to Ikeda and that if H could help her to pay Ikeda back one more time, she could. You guys can already guess what line is coming next. Yes, that she could finally be able to live together with H. Man H, really running out of money at this point, could not give the 5 to 10 million yen that Mai initially asked for, but was able to give her 3.17 million yen, or around 20,125 USD to Mai, on 7 different installments. Needless to say, Mai still did not go and live together with H after she received the money. On August 4th, 2023, literally only just a few days prior to her first arrest, on August 23rd, 2023, Mai messaged H that she was behind on her mobile phone bills when she in fact was not. This led H to transfer to Mai 20,000 yen or around 127 USD. This was the last instance of Mai scamming money out from man H. According to the Nagoya District prosecutors, back in 2021, there was man I, aged between 51 to 54 years old at the time, who showed romantic interest towards Mai. Mai, attempting to take advantage of this, lied to I that she was behind on her rent and that if she was not to pay the rent, she'll be evicted. Man I, believing this, transferred 650,000 yen or around 4,130 USD to Mai's bank account between March 30th to 31st, 2021. The prosecutors state that she spent all of the money for entertainment purposes, which for her was her visits to the host club. On April 2nd, 2021, similar to her I owe money to Ikeda strategy back from scam number 2, Mai lied and messaged man I through line that she owed money to an acquaintance in the sum of 200,000 yen or around 1,270 USD. Man I transferred her the money in which Mai then spent on hosts. On April 5th, 2021, just 3 days after her previous scam, Mai tells man I that she caused some type of an accident and injured an acquaintance of hers. Of course, this was a lie. However, Mai continues to tell man I that this injured acquaintance was demanding Mai to pay a settlement fee of a sum that Mai did not have. And on top of that, Mai had the audacity to tell man I that she was behind on paying her mobile phone bills as well. The 51 to 54-year-old man I, believing Mai, transferred her 350,000 yen or around 2,222 USD on the same day when Mai requested the money. Between April 13th to April 28th, 2021, Mai messaged man I through line that she was behind on her credit card loan payments. Man I, already enchanted by Mai's sugar daddy magic spell, transferred 11,100,000 yen or around 70,469 USD to Mai's regular savings account on 3 installments. The Nagoya District prosecutors once again state that she was in fact not behind on her credit card bills and spent all the money on entertainment purposes. Between April 30th to June 30th, 2021, almost identical to her method that we previously mentioned in scam number 1, Mai lies and tells man I that she needs money to cut ties with her parents. Man I, believing in my story, transfers 21.2 million Japanese yen or around 135,000 USD to Mai's regular savings account on 11 installments. The I need money to cut ties with my parents narrative seems to be one of her go-to moves, as both with man H and man I, she was able to scam quite a large sum of money out of them through this narrative alone. In mid-2021, Mai messages man I through line that she created a clothing company in the past, which unfortunately went south. She told man I that she borrowed a lot of money to initially launch her clothing company, but did not have the finances to repay the debt. All of this was obviously a lie, as Mai never established a clothing company in the past. However, man I believes this and transfers her 40.28 million yen or around 256,000 USD from his regular savings account on 19 separate installments between July 16th, 2021 to February 4th, 2022. Between February 12th to 24th, 2022, Mai tells man I of a surprising news, that she was going to marry a rich guy. And then Mai asks Man I if he could lend her 15 million yen, or around 95,300 USD. She told him that she could now definitely pay him back, as she was going to marry a man with financial means. Reading this legal document provided by the Nagoya District Court was just, how can we put this, a huge mindfuck to be honest. But this is literally the information written on the document. Anyways, Man I once again falls for Mai's lies and transfers 15 million yen to her bank account on February 24th, 2022. Mai did not repay any of the money back and spent it all on entertainment purposes. Between April 14th, 2022 to August 6th, 2023, Mai messages Man I on multiple different occasions. So in the rather extended span of time between April 28th, 2022 to August 6th, 2023, Man I transferred money to her in 37 different occasions. The sum total of all the transfers came to 28,260,000 yen, or around 179,000 USD. On June 7th, 2023, Mai asks Man J, a 57-year-old man who developed an affection for Mai, for 200,000 yen, or around 1,360 USD, for the purpose of repaying debt to an acquaintance. On the same day when Mai requested the money, Man J transferred the sum to her bank account from an ATM machine located in the city of Ota, Gunma Prefecture. On July 3rd, 2023, Mai asks Man J once again for money, providing the same reason of needing to pay back debt to an acquaintance. Man J transferred the requested sum of 100,000 yen, or around 680 USD, to Mai's bank account on the same day. Mai's total income for 2021 was 73,150,197 yen, or around 464,000 USD. This means that, according to Japan's National Tax Agency, Mai's income tax for 2021 was 28,655,000 yen, or around 182,000 USD, in which Mai did not pay, making her indicted for tax evasion for 2021. Mai's total income for 2022 was 37,689,728 yen, or around 239,000 USD. This means that, according to Japan's National Tax Agency, Mai's income tax for 2022 was 12,533,300 yen, or around 79,000 USD, in which Mai did not pay, making her indicted for tax evasion in 2022 as well. The judgment paper specifically states, to quote, "As long as income is actually generated, the income coming from an illegal or invalid source is not an issue, and it is understood that there is no obstacle to the imposition and collection of tax on the income." To put it simply, the Japanese National Tax Agency will make sure that a significant portion of the income that Mai earned mainly from receiving personal bank transfers from various old men be collected by the government in the form of taxes, regardless of the money coming from scam or no scam. And last but not least, crime number 18 will be the part that Mai played in aiding and abetting in fraud by selling her sugar daddy magic manual, leading a 19-year-old Ieda Miku, who bought Mai's manual to use the methods written from the manual to scam 10,650,000 yen, or around 67,500 USD, out of two men. The methods that she used to scam money out of the two men were very similar to the one utilized by Mai in her scams, such as lying about being behind on rent payments, being in a situation of financial difficulty, etc., etc. So as stated by former prosecutor Takahashi, the reason why Mai's sentencing has been given on the longer side of 9 years in prison is due to several combined reasons, such as how she was charged with committing not a single case of scam, but several, indicating that this was not a one-time crime of momentary misjudgment, but a one of a habitual nature. The fact that there were multiple victims of our scams, how there were financial damages over 100 million yen, and the past sentencing precedents in Japan for fraud cases going over 100 million yen in damages, tending to subject the perpetrator to heavy sentences of 5 years or more. And of course, how she was charged with not just fraud, but with other crimes as well, such as aiding and abetting in fraud to selling her scam manual, and did not conduct her duty of filing for income tax of around 40 million yen. Slapping tax evasion into her sentence will always be that one factor that will make the Japanese public at least shake their head to some degree though, regarding the Japanese National Tax Agency's unwavering determination to collect taxes under whatever means necessary from the citizens of the society who do not yield power and influence in this island nation. So how did Mai herself react to the 9 years plus 80 million yen in fines prison sentence? Mai wrote in her prison diary entry on April 28, 2024 that she was in a complete daze for the first 6 days. She wrote that she really could not even imagine living almost 10 years in prison, and says that she'll be living each day in prison feeling with her whole body of the negative emotions such as pain and fear. She does attempt to stay optimistic though, as she eventually wrote, "By the time that I get out of prison, I'm sure that I'll be able to provide an answer such as, my time in prison had this and this meaning, and it has helped me to grow in this and this way." But then, at least in the current phase, although she says that she is keeping herself busy with various tasks, she still seems to be at a loss. On her May 10th, 2024 prison diary entry, she wrote, "I'm doing the best I can with everything that's in front of me right now, but I do not know what is the right way to live. I'm doing what I can right now, but the thing is, I do not know. I do not know. I do not know. But I'm still living." And at least to some extent, it does seem as if it is somewhat understandable that Mai is in a state of disarray right now. While she is trying her best to swallow the truth that she'll be spending almost a decade in prison, various reporters from across the country visit her in prison once again due to her current, almost semi-celebrity status. And much worse than the visits from the reporters are the visits from the unscrupulous lawyers. On the May 9th, 2024 prison diary entry of Mai, she wrote that she was visited by an unknown lawyer on May 2nd. For context, the Japanese law stipulates that any lawyer with a lawyer's license can create an appointment with an inmate. And as Mai and her current lawyer decided to appeal against the judgment of 9 years in prison, it seems that all kinds of lawyers across Japan want to defend Mai in the upcoming appeal process that will be heard by the Supreme Court. But none of the lawyers who visit her seem to have the best interest of Mai at heart, and rather have the intention of using her to make a name for themselves. The lawyer who visited Mai on the May 2nd, for instance, made her sit down and talk to her for almost an hour of how the lawyers whom Mai appointed up to this point are all wrong and incompetent, obviously hinting that she should fire her current lawyer and appoint him as her new lawyer. According to Mai, when he was leaving, he gave her a little smirk and literally said with his very own mouth, "Maybe I just want to use you to make a name for myself." Mai wrote that she was left anxious after his visit. Then this lawyer visits Mai again a few days later on May 7th, talking about how his time is so important, but that he still made the generous act of visiting her for her sake. Then he began attempting to drive a wedge between Mai and her current lawyer and supporters, saying that they were just using Mai for their gains. Then he demanded Mai to fire her current defense lawyer and hire him immediately. When Mai told the lawyer that she would have to talk to her current lawyer first, he said, "It will be too late then. It will be too late." Mai wrote that the lawyer held her and talked in a slow pace for around 2.5 hours, obviously attempting to hear from Mai that she wants to hire him as her new defense lawyer, and left only at 12 midnight. Mai wrote that by the time he left, she was in a state of extreme confusion and went crazy. When Mai released this entry of her prison diary, many people in Japan reacted on Twitter, mostly discussing how shady and suspicious this lawyer is. And as commented by this one person, people with not the best of motives will most likely continue to appear and disappear in Mai's life, both during and after her prison sentence, inevitably due to the level of fame that she has now gained. Now, after going through the entire life story of Watanabe Mai, we believe many of us could probably have this question in mind. Would things have been different for the better for Mai if she was raised in a normal, loving family? At least for many in Japan, they believe this to be the case. In the Twitter account where Mai's prison diary entries are updated on, the comment section is inundated with people being half surprised and half amazed at how good of a writer she actually is. And this is not some form of a pity praise done by individuals who feel sorry for her receiving a 9-year sentence and would like to make her feel better. No, Mai is genuinely a talented writer. If she puts her mind to it, she can write an incredibly long piece of text by hand while keeping her message still entertaining and coherent. And some even say that reading some of her diary entries is almost a similar experience to that of reading a Kafka work. So although Mai often does have the tendency to self-deprecate herself and describe herself as a stupid girl whom the only good thing she has is her body, that is just objectively not the case. She may be a liar and a scammer, but what she's not though is an unintelligent walking piece of flesh, as she has deemed herself from a young age. So as stated by this one commenter, if Mai was born from an ordinary family and had access to a decent level of education, medical care, and just a basic degree of welfare as a child and a teenager, as well as not get scammed by hosts, not to mention be taken advantage of by creepy old men from such a young age, she most likely would have graduated from university and have found a job which would have allowed her to make use of her talent in writing. Just to elaborate briefly on what this commenter means by Mai being scammed by hosts, if we remember correctly, Mai first moved out of her hometown in order to live independently by herself in Yokohama when she was around 18 and was just working a normal job at a mobile phone store. But then, Mai says that a senior of Mai back from high school took her to a host club in Yokohama where the young 18-year-old Mai met a host for the first time. The host basically used similar methods to Mai, in which Mai herself then later used to scam money out from the old men. First make Mai feel like she was in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship with the host and make her develop romantic feelings for the host. Then the host eventually tells Mai that he's in a state of financial difficulty to the point that he was not able to pay back his car loans and asks Mai for money. Just being a naive 18-year-old girl at the time, Mai believes him and gives over the money that she has made from working at the mobile phone store to the host. So as you can see, the very mentor of Mai who taught her the ways of how to scam money out of people in the way that is explained within her love magic manual are the hosts of Japan. And it has been common knowledge for the longest of time in Japan that many of the male hosts, when they begin working for a host club, get given a manual themselves to study on in order to squeeze money out from their clients that are very similar in content to that of Mai's love magic scam manual in terms of how to progressively exploit another person's affection towards them for their own financial gain. Thus the reason why the standing women in Japan's night entertainment district of Kabukicho is becoming such a large social issue in Japan in the recent phase, with the majority of such standing women who are already well under the magic love spell of the hosts conduct such standing work in order to hand over the profits to the hosts. And Mai was unfortunately such a standing individual on the streets of Kabukicho. And all of the 150 million yen worth of financial gain that she has made from scamming the older men has indeed been confirmed to have been handed over to her favorite hosts, with not a single cent being left in her bank account.
ねえ、本当にね、お金って持ってみたらわかるけどね、もう紙切れだよこれ。これでね、本当に欲しいもんって手に入らないよね、やっぱ。
But then, whenever a host does get arrested for a crime, such as psychologically manipulating their female clients, make them conduct S-work from the streets or at a S-work establishment, and hand over the money to them, they usually just get a slap on the wrist, and never a hefty sentence, such as 9 years in prison, as in the case of Mai. Now, to be fair, the vast majority of these hosts probably never took money from their victims to the sheer magnitude of the one as committed by Mai, nor so the manuals of the host clubs to men across the country, thus partly justifying their relatively short sentences compared to Mai. However, throughout the process of conducting research for this video, we found it blatantly evident that the Japanese authorities, whether it be the prosecutors or even the judge, did their very best to not mention or leave the record of the word host throughout the investigation and judgment process of Mai, not to mention in any of the official documents. The very single reason why Mai scammed money out from the old men, as well as make additional profits by selling her scam manual, can literally be summarized into one word: hosts. Mai repeatedly states that in her empty and unfulfilling life, making the host whom she dearly loved into the #1 host of his host club was her raison d'etre, the one and only meaning in her life that kept her going. And the host whom she was enamored with, Tanaka Yuji, was fully aware of the fact that she was scamming money from old men and was handing it over to him, but encouraged her nonetheless, and even sent Mai a message such as, "I'm your accomplice now," acting as if he's some type of homme fatale. But then, although initially arrested, the host has then been released and is not being investigated under an arrested state, as in the case of what happened with Mai, and is even being allowed to work at the izakaya that his mother runs and live with his mother at her house while he's undergoing police and prosecutorial investigation, according to a Japanese journalist, Sento Masanori, who went as a spectator of Tanaka Yuji's third trial, which was held at the Nagoya District Court on June 4th, 2024, describes Yuji as a complete loser who was hiding behind behind his mother, with his shoulders shaking like a child who was about to have a tantrum. And although the verdict for the host has not yet been made, given how he's not even being investigated in an arrested state and is just going through a perfunctory trial process while already being allowed to work again, it is most likely that he'll be given a light sentence along with probation, as in what has usually been the case for the other arrested hosts. And as we've mentioned earlier, although this host was, without exaggeration, the single most important reason why Mai committed all her money-making scams, the word host or host club is never mentioned once in the official investigation paper prepared by the Nagoya district prosecutors. Whenever the word host or host club has to be mentioned, it is conveniently replaced with phrases such as entertainment purposes. But visiting host clubs in order to give money to her favorite host was the single entertainment in which Mai had in her life. She did not have a hobby. She did not have a penchant for purchasing expensive items. It was all for the host. So considering how important of a role in which host clubs have had as the fundamental motivator for Mai's crimes, as well as teaching her the very ways back when she was 18 on how to exploit another person's romantic feelings and extract money out of them, one would expect that the word would at least be mentioned once in the official documentation written by the Nagoya district prosecutors when investigating Mai's case. But it is not. And the head judge, Omura Yoichi, who gave Mai her 9-year prison sentence, said that Mai committing each of her crimes in order to contribute to the sales of her favorite host was truly selfish and leaves no room for excuses. And I mean, it is no rocket science for us to fathom why the authorities in Japan are doing all that they can in order to not incriminate the host clubs of the nation to the best of their abilities. The host clubs of Kabukicho and the rest of Japan's 9 entertainment districts are registered businesses that pay their taxes, meaning that it's a huge industry that creates astronomical amounts of annual tax revenue for the government. Mai, although the psychological method that she used to take money from the old men were very similar, or in many ways identical to the method in which many of the hosts utilize in order to take money from their female clients, her as well as her young female followers who purchased her scam manual and have committed similar acts as her are not licensed businesses, nor do they pay a single cent in income tax to the government whenever they do successfully squeeze money out from others. So we can see why the Japanese authorities are setting a rather memorable landmark precedent out of Mai by giving her almost a decade of prison time, heavily televise it, and set fear in any young women across Japan who are even remotely thinking of doing something similar to her, while the host clubs, yes, the government will occasionally put on a show of a crackdown, change regulations here and there, arrest a few hosts, but fundamentally, no host club related perpetrator who scammed money from their female clients through coercing or psychologically manipulating them into handing over them money will receive almost a decade-long prison sentence, not to mention receive much media attention. The host club industry is just too lucrative for the people at the right places at the right high layers of the Japanese society. So the silver lining for Mai regarding her time in prison would be that she can now, although somewhat involuntarily, free herself from the temptations of Kabukicho and the host scene. Mai wrote in her prison diary entry that she's reading a lot of books, studying English and kanji, and is exercising by stretching every day in prison. And on her recent July 16th, 2024 prison diary entry, we got to see that Mai most likely got contacted by a publisher who read her prison diary entries and saw her talent in writing, leading her to announce to everyone that she's officially writing a book that will eventually be later released in Japan with front and back covers, and says that she'll have to cut back on her daily diary entries as she now have to focus on writing the manuscript for her book. And this time, instead of writing a guidebook that teaches girls of her age on how to scam and defraud money out of people, she will finally be using her talents for good and write a book that will hopefully bring a positive message to people across Japan who may have encountered similar tragedies as her during their childhood and adolescence, as well as bring a message of cautionary tale to the young individuals in Japan on the dangers of a lifestyle that is rotated around host club addiction and the path of S-work and financial scamming that many young women unfortunately fall into in Japan in order to finance such a lifestyle.